I agree totally with you, Elena. The shipping is probably the most adaptable of all businesses. If you consider that the first triple expansion steam reciprocating engine was created in 1888 by Kincaid, and today we're talking about nuclear powered ships. In 140 years, we've changed the face of the world. And I think shipping is one of the leaders in innovative design and ideas. So last speaker for the first question is Professor Orestes Kinias. I have to tell you, Associate Professor of Ship Finance at the University of the Aegean. He is actually a diploma engineer, and he has a degrees in naval architecture and marine engineering from Metsovia Polytechnion and MSc in shipping and management. So you notice that it's the engineers that are forging the way ahead.
We rule, actually.
We rule.
So, I think I'm the last speaker, but I will, Elena, you were not romantic. I mean, when you started the whole discussion, I mean, you were among the pioneers of the ESG in Greece. But allow me to, let's say, provide my, let's say, point of view from a more financial point of view. Although I started working back in '94, early '94, many months before my graduation from the Technical University, I realized that finance is really, let's say, the key power of moving things and changing things. And what I would like to do right now is I would like not to focus on my past and my history, but to give you a little bit my point of view on the challenges ahead for this adaptability of shipping. And allow me to begin with a very, very simple fact that the allocation of capitals to shipping has been substantially reduced in the last 15 years. Just to give you a figure, because I just came back from Germany. So the top 40 banks, let's say, they are reducing their exposure to shipping. And the German shipping, in the German ship finance community, has reduced almost 80% of this exposure. And why should I really care about the German shipping? Because it was representing 60 to 70% of the total portfolio. So why did all these banks leave? Why did all these investors leave, let's say, shipping? It was because of the yield? No. I mean, shipping as a sector has always, has traditionally offered very high yields. Is it because of the write-off, let's say, of all the losses that they experienced after the big party of China in the period 2010, 2015? Yes and no. I mean, the banks come and go in the shipping industry. But you know, the real reason is the regulation of banking, of the financial institutions per se. It is Basel III and Basel IV, these conventions that practically dictate a shift from the asset financing, from the asset-based finance to more corporations. It means that, let's say, less money, less capital is available to finance one ship or one single project than we have as a bank, let's say, as an institution, to shift to more portfolio, to more corporate solutions. So what does it mean? I mean, what is the result of it? The result is that the big banks, they always go for the tier one clients. Let's say the very big clients, let's say with more than 100 million tons deadweight under management, they're going to go for big tickets, let's say over $20-25 million as loans, and they seek also very long time charters. And there is a very slight detail here that I did not mention, that most of these banks, they are not going to sell their own money. They're going to do the fronting. They're going to ask for money from investors, from funds, and they're going to do the fronting. So Mr. Pallios or Mr. whoever, Fafalios, Pateras, you would like to get money, I can do the fronting from you. I will do the money, I can get the money from funds, various funds, and this, I will sell the money of the funds to you. Because I do the fronting, I do this regulatory clearance. And that means that the big clients have an advantage, the small and medium enterprises, they have a problem. And because fresh capital is required for the greening of the fleet and all of these wonderful things that we have, let's say, heard so far, the gap of the demand and supply of capital is increasing constantly. Please keep this word, investors. Who are these investors? Institutional investors. Why is this so important? Because these investors, these investors, they have to follow rules, and these rules are almost identical to the rules of the bank. Basel III, Basel IV, AFM directive, blah, 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 the usual stuff in Europe. So why bother in Europe? Because whether we like it or not, most of the ship finance capital still comes from Europe. So Europe is still paving the way ahead in ship finance. So these institutional investors, in order to provide money, either for single projects or for funds or to other banks that do the funding, whatever, what are these guys looking for? They look for yields, absolutely. Returns, risk, and yield returns. Professionalism. They look for transparency. This is important. They look for proper reporting and definitely for compliance. All of this is, let's say, a little bit new to shipping industry. Will the shipping industry adopt and, let's say, meet the challenge? I'm pretty sure they will. And all right now, the big companies are doing that because they really adopt a more corporate identity, a more corporate structure. So why is this so important? Because, and I'm really surprised that no one mentioned this point here, because of the new regulation like EU taxonomy. The EU taxonomy is, let's say, an instrument of the Europe. It's not a perfect instrument, but it introduces ESG criteria, and introduces, let's say, all these wonderful things that are not romantic. Right now, we're talking about money into the credit system. Do the banks or the funds have already incorporated ESG criteria into the credit system? No, because this is another point that comes from the central bank and from, let's say, the regulator of the national authorities. However, it begins from the 1st of January 24, the party starts. So the other point is the reporting, the SFD directive, the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Directive. That means what? That the clients of the bank, okay, the shipping company, has to report all these wonderful things. It's not only CO2 emissions, it's not only emissions of particulate matters, it is also what do you do for the society, what do you do for, let's say, governance, all these issues, let's say, like how many women do we have, what is, let's say, the expertise you have in the company, etc. So you see that the game is changing. And at the end of the day, what does it really mean to us for shipping, let's say, for the real people here working, let's say, with ships and for ships, and not, let's say, the regulators who sit somewhere in Switzerland and they play with money and digital transactions. Let me summarize that. I think that in a very few words, it means that we're going to have a multi-tier market. So of course, they're going to have banks and financial institutions that they're going to go for, let's say, the big clients and, let's say, the very big projects. We're going to have, let's say, funds that we're going to have, let's say, various ecosystems of funds that are going to finance equity or debt or whatever, and they're going to fill part of the gap. But at the same time, we're going to have more and more investors who are going to put money if only this ESG and the yield criteria are satisfied. And this means that the plain vanillas, the asset-based loans, are of course welcome, but they're going to be very, very few. So in my understanding, corporatization is not only a trend, is, let's say, one of the challenges that we face ahead. Mr. Pallot said before about the concentration and the mergers and acquisition and going public. All of this implies that you run a corporation. And secondly, all of this ESG stuff, it's not a romantic, it is not, let's say, nice to have, it's a must have. So allow me to conclude with a very simple remark. If you run like right now, if you have a ship that, as per the CII, delivers, I don't know, B or C, your banker might be happy. If for whatever reason, let's say that the charters decide, whatever, to slow down or to stay, I don't know how many months, let's say, at the port, and the CII deteriorates to the D and the E, the bank cannot do anything. The loan is served. But you know, internally, the bank is going to have a problem. Who is going to have the problem? The compliance department of the bank, not the ship finance department, the compliance and the treasury. And the compliance and the treasury, you know, these guys, these are the two guys that you really avoid to meet in a bank meeting. The treasurer, because he has already made his mind based on what you have done and based on the risk that he's forecasting, and the compliance, because it's never good to be there with these guys. I mean, if you are there with these guys, then you have an issue. And you know what's going to happen? The treasurer will say, hey, you know, I get so many CO2 reported. I don't like that. Do something. What can the ship finance do, the department? Nothing. It's not even in the loan agreement. They can pick up the phone and can say, what happened with your CII? The ship owner can, let's say, give any excuse, but he doesn't care. I pay back my loan. And the compliance guys, we really have to say, look, we have to reduce our exposure to the sector. Is this a fiction? Is this a science fiction case? No. This is what happened to the coal-fired projects. This is what happened to the malls, let's say real estate in other sectors. And you know, the single criterion for that was how many tons of CO2 emissions per dollar we are exposed. That was all. So it's not romantic. This is the new way ahead.
Thank you very much, Oreste. Yes, we all now know to avoid the compliance officer in the bank. But green shipping is, as we've seen now, very adaptable. Greek ship owners have always survived all sorts of changes because they pass on their companies to the worthy and not the entitled. And that's a very important part of the success of the Greek shipping miracle. Yes, we're going to have to change our governance from the family-owned business to the corporate structure. But we need to find the money. We need to decarbonize shipping. We're going to need billions. To decarbonize the world, I was watching a US congressional subcommittee on the amount of money. They're talking in trillions of dollars, 50 trillion to keep the temperature of the world down by 1.5. That's what America has to spend. So if America spends 50 trillion and reduces their carbon to zero, will the temperature of the world come down by 1.5 degrees if nobody else does anything? So shipping has to play its role, and shipping will play its role because shipping is adaptable. So now your second question, you don't have to get up. You can all do it from there to be as quickly as possible because everybody's getting hungry. We're only a little bit behind schedule. Second question, which is important, is what do you believe is going to be the change of this adaptable business in your lifetimes, how you expect it to happen in the next 20, 30 years to be able to make Greek shipping green and to be adaptable and to be able to survive the new changes that we all see ahead of us. Thank you. Mr. Faraklos. If it doesn't work, you can always come here. Or we can let's do it that way. Just pass this down. Thank you very much.
Hello. Obviously, whatever is going to happen has to be done both, not only from the ship owner side. Something who has to be triangular also. Probably more. Shipyards, makers, bunker suppliers, ports, infrastructure of ports. So in order to achieve the target of zero by 2050, has to be an effort from various parties, not from one party. If anybody believes that only ship owners can achieve it, it's an illusion. So this is my view. And I believe that the technology in the next 10, 15 years will be there to improve. It won't be easy. It won't be easy, but will be most probably achievable.
Thank you. Please pass it on to but you're absolutely right. If we don't all work together, it can't be just one party doing all the work. Thank you, Sam.
It's a very, very difficult question. I think you're on the right track. It has to be something much more encompassing between the customer and the client. Because the ship owner, if the market says, market conditions are not correct, there will not be enough money coming in ship owner's pocket and allow him to make the changes he needs. I actually think that the only way that that will happen is have some kind of price fixing for commodities shipping. Going to have to be some kind of minimum tariff in order to allow the owner guaranteed income, to allow him to guarantee that he can put the changes in place that we.
Thank you. But there's also the other serious problem that we've got to make a decision on how we're going to go green. Because if we have so many alternative ways of going green, what you invest in might be wrong. We have a great history of this here in Greece, where people didn't want to go mechanical, and some families stayed with the sail ships from Galaxidi, and others went on to the steamships because they believed that the steamship would never work. Some people say hydrogen won't work. Some people say methanol won't work. Some people say ammonia won't work. And they stayed behind because they remained with the sails. So we have to look ahead and we have to find what will be, how we can go forward. Agreed, the commercial side of it, we have to ensure the income because the ship owner is not going to invest just to go bankrupt. Please, your views on what you think will happen or what you think should happen.
As a lawyer, I expect for the future legal certainty, transparency, and an effective settlement of claims. And 3 words: safety, safety, safety. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, transparency has now become the key word in everything that we do. And we cannot afford not to be transparent. And we must share information. Konstantina, please.
Yeah, well, I remind you, I'm an accountant, so I don't know how. I'm not an engineer, but yes, what I see that it will happen is that the pace of change is going to make the 20-30 years that took the shipping industry to modernize from the pen to the ERP. It will take a lot less to modernize, to be able to become more transparent, more corporate, because there's no other way, more reliant on very good professionals outside the shipping company, especially the smaller shipping company who doesn't have the expertise, because for the big shipping company, they have a lot of expertise in-house. The smaller shipping company, and as my father says, a ship owner believes that he can do an operation on his own. This mentality that I can do everything on my own, eventually it will go away. So they will need to rely on very good accountants, very good lawyers, very good to handle all this, the tsunami of change that is coming. And I believe, given that the new generation of industry, I like what you say, of worthy continuers, the new generation who are more corporate mentality, certain that they will adopt. We see traditional houses becoming very, very corporate very quickly, and as I said in our conference ago, Greek shipping has absolutely nothing to be afraid of. It's a world champion and will continue to be a world champion by adopting all of these regulations.
Thank you very much, Costa. And as you said, you're not an engineer, but not everyone's perfect. So let's, Elena.
Well, I'm not an engineer either, but I work a lot with engineers. Okay. I think that there are, for me, 2 things is going to happen. One, on the industry level, I totally agree with Antonis Faraklas about the collaboration and the stakeholder engagement. I mean, decarbonization cannot happen without collaboration. The collaboration has to be done not on the engineering side, not only shipyards, all right, but you definitely need the shipyards, the fuel producers, the investors, the engine manufacturers, the shipbuilders, the ship owners will be the last ones actually, because these are the ones that, of course, they will have a say, but at the same time, they're the ones that are going to adopt, okay, with the let's say with the new designs. Even the regulatory framework that and the governments should actually be there, and definitely, as I said, the investment, the state aid. Without state aid, nothing is going to happen. We're not going to be talking even about the nuclear power, okay? Because first of all, the governments needs to accept that that will be the future in energy transition in order, let's say, to adapt it. That's on the industry side. On the company side, what they can do though, and they can start from now, is to do two things. One is risk assessment, okay? And then the second one is the business plan. And this is something that companies has not actually started realizing. It. What we have seen so far is a little bit of cost benefit analysis. If you use this technology and that technology and the other technology, but now things have changed. It's not about scrubbers. It's not about yet another, let's say, technology that needs to be installed. It's more about changing the business model of shipping. Particularly if we, what Mr. Palliot said, we're going to have unmanned, and we have more ship owners, thinking about having unmanned vessels in order, let's say, to reduce the cost. That's it.
Thank you very much. We need also the regulatory framework to keep up with us, with the innovation. And that's going to be I think that will be one of the stumbling blocks where the governments will have to modify the regulatory framework to keep up with modern technology and the way we need to move forward, and not just on the green side of shipping. Boris, please.
I don't have a crystal ball. If I had one, then I could, let's say, support your investment in a better way. But to cut a very long story short, I strongly believe that the future is green, digital, and cyclical. And that means that the tools that we have today, let's say with a simple cost benefit analysis, or let's say investment appraisal and all of this stuff, do not suffice. They're not, let's say, the right tools to assess the investments required. And I think that the winners of the next generation of business are the winners, let's say, they're going to be determined by, let's say, life cycle assessment projects. Let's say when they're gonna see the ship and the corporate and the company in a life cycle. And we have already examples and paradigms from other sectors where we shift to this life cycle assessment. So I think that this is going to determine the winner of the new world that's coming. And it's not only decarbonization, it's not only cooperation. We have to consider, let's say, more complicated problems like the decommissioning of ships and what's going on, let's say, from the very beginning when you start ordering or contemplating or thinking of ordering a ship till the moment that the ship is completely demolished at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And we were with the Mr. Poutoulakis, who was here from the ministry earlier. We were in Brussels a few days ago, and one of the ideas that people were trying to instill in us from the European Commission is that ships should be built with the idea of modification and retrofit in mind from the way that they're being built. So that when technology catches up with what we need or with our level of ambition, that we want to go ahead and make it green or make whatever it is, you should design that into the ship so that the retrofit can be done. So we've got to not think, I'm going to build this ship for 25 years. No, I'm going to build this ship for 50 years, and I'm going to allow the retrofit to be designed into the ship.
If you design the ship for 15 years, I mean, first of all, there is no rule for the 25 years. It comes originally from the Classification Society rules, or let's say the maintenance of steel.
No,
this is
the 25-year rule was from the insurance underwriters. The risk was too high, and they include your cargo insurance went up so much higher when the ship was over 25 years.
I'm not sure that I can challenge that. However, I can tell you that at least in the rules of Germanis Lloyd, it was clearly stated that we design the ship for the 25 years. But anyway, I mean, we can discuss about the sources.
It was actually the encountering of the catastrophic wave, which was put in at once every 25 years.
But what I wanted to say is something else. I mean, when you discuss with the Commission, for example, about ships and modifications, you discuss right now with a specific generation of officers. After 2 or 3 years, these people were gonna, let's say, shift offices, they're gonna shift portfolio, and the new generation will start up with a new idea. So the old idea is not there. So you see the life cycle of, let's say, what you're talking as a project or as a problem, it may be 15, 25 years. We can consider insurance or financial risk and aspects, but for these people, it doesn't matter.
As Costas Lemos, the famous Costas Lemos, CM Lemos, you say that your ship is out of date the moment it runs down the slipway. So now I have the pleasure to hand over to our discussant, George Xiradaki, who's going to speak to us. And remember, lunch will be delayed if he takes too long. Thank you very much.
Κυρίες και κύριοι, δεν έχω πολύ να σας πω, δεν έχω πολλά να σας πω, γιατί ουσιαστικά γύρω από το θέμα του adaptability νομίζω ότι καλύφθηκαν όλα και για όλες αυτές τις ειδικότητες, όλα αυτά τα κομμάτια της ναυτιλίας. Αυτό που έχω να σας πω και θέλω να τονίσω είναι ότι βρισκόμαστε σε ένα από τα στηρίγματα της ελληνικής ναυτιλίας, που είναι ένας οίκος της εκπαίδευσης, ο οποίος αποφασίζει, αν και νέος ακόμα, να δημιουργήσει ένα διεθνές συνέδριο με έναν και μοναδικό σκοπό, να ενισχύσει αυτό που λέμε το adaptability όλου του industry. Να έρθει μαζί ο Κωνσταντίνου με τον Φαράκλα και τον Ξηραδάκη, ή η Αθουσάκη με τον πατέρα. Να έρθει να παρακολουθήσει ο άνθρωπος που άφησε τον σπόρο εδώ πέρα μέσα, ο Λίτινας, μαζί με την Ολυμπία, που μίλησε εξαιρετικά εκτός κειμένου και μας έδωσε να καταλάβουμε που πάει το θέμα του operation και το πώς βλέπει μια τεράστια μεγάλη εταιρεία την επόμενη μέρα στο αντικείμενό της. Λοιπόν, είμαστε λοιπόν σε αυτό, γιατί ευτυχώς σε αυτόν τον οίκο εδώ πέρα που ζούμε μέσα, θέλω να σας θυμίσω ότι ήταν και ο πρώτος οίκος που τόλμησε να πει ότι θέλω να κάνω και κάτι στα αγγλικά. Τότε κανένα άλλο ελληνικό πανεπιστήμιο δεν μπορούσε να σκεφτεί να κάνει κάτι στα αγγλικά. Μην κοιτάτε που ανθίσταμαι εγώ να τα πω τώρα στα ελληνικά, το θέλω να το πω στα ελληνικά για να είναι καταγεγραμμένο έτσι και να γίνει πολύ κατανοητό όταν θα παιχτεί και αλλού αυτή η ομιλία μου. Ναι, δεν έχει σημασία. Η σημασία αν ήταν το μεταπτυχιακό ή το προπτυχιακό, ήταν η πρώτη κίνηση ενός πανεπιστημίου, πόσο μάλλον ναυτιλιακού, πολύ πριν ακόμα άλλος αποφασίσει να το κάνει αυτό. Και θεωρώ ότι είναι μεγάλη μας χαρά και όλων μας το ότι παραβρεθήκαμε εδώ πέρα από το πρωί, ακούσαμε τέτοιες πολύ ωραίες ομιλίες, δεν υπήρξε καμία καλύτερη από την άλλη, υπήρξε κάποια πιο συναισθηματική, πιο ιστορική, υπήρξαν όμως άλλες οι οποίες μας προβληματίσανε. Και αυτό είναι το νόημα και η επιτυχία της ελληνικής ναυτιλίας, που υποσχέθηκε ο Αντώνης ότι αυτή σίγουρα θα φέρει το adaptability, σίγουρα θα υπάρχει αυτή η κοινή προσπάθεια στο ο ένας να καταλάβει τον άλλον. Αυτή όλη η προσπάθεια είναι ότι δεν θα χάσουμε καθόλου ποτέ το στόχο μας, γιατί αυτή η αγορά εξελίσσεται με πολύ γρήγορο ρυθμό. Δεν ξέρω αν η γενιά έφυγε από τα 30 χρόνια και πήγε στα 4 που είπε ο κύριος Παλιός, αλλά αναμφισβήτηται οι αλλαγές που ζούμε είναι τεράστιες. Και εγώ ήμουν στα καράβια, τώρα άμα μπούμε σε μια γέφυρα δεν καταλαβαίνω τίποτα. Δεν υπάρχει περίπτωση. Όπως ο Ρέστης τώρα είπε πολύ ξεκάθαρα τη νέα τράπεζα. Η νέα τράπεζα, έλεγα σε μια συνεδρίαση, σε ένα συνέδριο αντίστοιχο στη Μάλτα κάποτε, ότι μια ολόκληρη τράπεζα έχει γίνει ένα κινητό. Στην Αμερική αυτή τη στιγμή με το κινητό σου μπορείς να σηκώσεις, να πάρεις δάνειο, νομίζω μέχρι εκεί υπάρχει το limit στα $28 εκατομμύρια. Σιγά σιγά βέβαια, γιατί βάζεις το αφημί, βάζεις το ένα, βάζεις το άλλο, μιλάς με τον τραπεζίτη και ο τραπεζίτης σου λέει, γιατί έχει πάει από το compliance office, έχει πάει από το credit department, έχει πάει αυτό, έχει περάσει από το tax authority, έχει περάσει από όλους τους ανθρώπους που λένε το reputation που το βάζουν, που μιλάνε για το τι είναι ο καθής, εντάξει, και μπορεί να αγοράσει ένα κίνητο έτσι. Λοιπόν, οπότε ουσιαστικά αυτός που διδάσκει financing σε λίγο καιρό μπορεί να μην χρειάζεται, να είναι και αυτό στο unmanned κομμάτι, γιατί θα έχει καλυφθεί από το digital. Εγώ έχω γίνει πολύ obsolete ούτως ή άλλως σαν ναυτιλιακός τραπεζίτης, γιατί το μοντέλο δεν μπορεί να καταλάβει όταν ο παλιός και όλοι αυτοί που τους πήρα όλους μαζί 6-7 εφοπλιστές και πήγαμε στην Κορέα για να σώσουμε μαζί με τους Γάλλους τις κορεατικές εταιρείες το 1997 στην κρίση της Κορέας και αγοράσαμε στο τέλος πάνω από 60 πλοία κοντέινερ και μπήκε ουσιαστικά ενεργά τότε η ελληνική ναυτιλία στα κοντέινερ. Λοιπόν, αυτό τώρα δεν μπορεί να το καταλάβει ένας Γάλλος τραπεζίτης ή ένας Έλληνας. Πρέπει να είναι εντάξει σύμφωνα με όλα αυτά που είπαν οι κύριοι και να έχουν έναν τέτοιον άνθρωπο ή και τέτοιον που τρέχει στα καράβια νύχτα μέρα, που είναι deputy CEO και ο κύριος Πατέρας και είναι και η μεγαλύτερη μορφή, αν θέλετε, ο εκπρόσωπός μας του κλάστερ παντού, και όμως τον βλέπουμε κάθε λίγο και λιγάκι με μία φόρμα να μπαίνει μέσα στο καράβι. Αν λοιπόν αυτοί εδώ οι δύο αξιολογηθούν και όλοι οι άλλοι γίνουν μαζί adaptable, τότε ουσιαστικά δεν έχουμε κανένα πρόβλημα. Εγώ νομίζω ότι αυτά που σας είπα τώρα αυτή τη στιγμή υποστηριχθήκανε πλήρως από το πάνελ αυτό. Θέλω να πω ότι αν το adaptability έχει καθυστερήσει ενεργά αυτό το διάστημα, δεν έχει καθυστερήσει γιατί το industry δεν είναι έτοιμο να το κάνει, δεν θέλει. Είναι γιατί ουσιαστικά τα κράτη καθυστερήσανε. Και το τι έγινε στη Γερμανία και το γίνεται στην Ελλάδα, γιατί έκανε 65 χρόνια να αλλάξει το ναυτικό δίκαιο, ή γιατί στη Γερμανία είδανε αλλιώς το θέμα της τράπεζας, είναι θέμα πολιτικό. Εδώ βλέπουμε ένα industry το οποίο μάχεται, βλέπουμε, να πούμε το παράδειγμα. Είδαμε προχθές την πρόεδρο της Ένωσης Ελλήνων Εφοπλιστών να πηγαίνει να κάνει μια εξαιρετική παρουσία του Greek Shipping μέσα στην Ευρώπη. Αυτό δεν το βλέπαμε πριν από καιρό. Έχουμε αυτή τη στιγμή, έχουμε ουσιαστικά ένα industry το οποίο στηρίζεται σε τέτοια όλα αυτά εδώ τα στελέχη, το οποίο ουσιαστικά σμπρώχνει προς τα πάνω όλη την αγορά και σμπρώχνει ακόμα παραπάνω και την ευρωπαϊκή αγορά. Το θέμα, χρειαζόμαστε άνθρωποι που να τολμούν, που να δίνουν χρόνο, όπως είναι ο Ζαχαριάδης, ο οποίος δεν έχει σταματήσει να ψάχνεται γύρω από αυτό το πράγμα. Και βεβαίως όλοι οι άλλοι, ο κύριος Κόντες, που είναι ουσιαστικά να πάρουμε και το passenger market, το οποίο είναι πάρα πολύ σημαντικό για την ελληνική ναυτιλία και γενικότερα και για την ευρωπαϊκή, και όλοι εσείς που είσαστε εδώ πέρα. Ο Ηλίας που έχει ο Νίκος που έχει την Lint, όλοι αυτοί οι οργανισμοί, αυτό που έχουμε δημιουργήσει, το ελληνικό shipping cluster, είναι αυτό που πρέπει ουσιαστικά να ενδυναμώνεται από εδώ και πέρα και ουσιαστικά να συνεχίσουμε την υπογραφή αυτής της συμφωνίας μπροστά στο adaptability, το οποίο μας διδάσκει και μας διδάσκει περίτρανα και το Πανεπιστήμιο Αιγαίου, το Τμήμα Ναυτιλιακών Σπουδών του Πανεπιστημίου Αιγαίου και πώς τα λέτε όλα αυτά, ναυτιλίας και επιχειρηματικότητας και όλα αυτά που θέλετε. Ας είναι καλά αυτό το τμήμα, όπως λένε στην Λονδίνο το τμήμα αυτό, να λένε και να πείτε και ένα τμήμα Λίτινα. Γιατί το οφείλετε αυτό το πράγμα. Γιατί το οφείλετε αυτό το πράγμα στους καθηγητές τους παλιούς. Όπως να πείτε κάποια στιγμή και ένα του κολλάκι, ο οποίος βοηθάει εδώ πέρα. Να αρχίσετε να βάλετε στόχους να βοηθάτε. Κάποτε σας είχα πει μπείτε στα αγγλικά. Μπήκατε πριν από 17 χρόνια. Εσύ μπορεί να είσαι μικρός, τότε λείπει η Ελένη. Αλλά μην ξεχνάς ότι εγώ έγινα και παππούς. Λοιπόν, αλλά να πρέπει να βάζετε στόχους για να καταλάβει ο κόσμος τι είναι και πού βαδίζει, γιατί είμαστε ένας ναυτολαός, είμαστε γεμάτο θάλασσα μέσα και μέσω αυτής του adaptability μπορούμε να προχωρήσουμε. Σας ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ.
Ευχαριστούμε για να κλείσεις το... Κύριε Ραθέλη,
θα αυτοπροσφωνηθώ. Λοιπόν, δεν θα κάνω concluded remarks με την έννοια που τη φαντάζεστε. Θα πω μόνο κανένα δύο γενικά remarks. Κυρίες και κύριοι, και θα μιλήσω κι εγώ ελληνικά. Τώρα πήραμε αυτόν τον δρόμο. Νομίζω ότι το πρώτο βήμα έγινε επιτυχώς. Δηλαδή, ο στόχος του να καθιερωθεί κάθε 2 χρόνια εδώ στοιχείο στο Πανεπιστήμιο Αιγαίου, στο τμήμα ναυτιλίας, ένα φόρουμ συνάντησης του πανεπιστημιακού πυλώνα της ναυτιλίας με τον επιχειρηματικό, παύλα επιχειρησιακό πυλώνα της ναυτιλίας, νομίζω ότι τουλάχιστον αυτό το πρώτο βήμα δείχνει ότι είχαμε ανταπόκριση δυνατή, ανταπόκριση υψηλού επίπεδου. Αν μου λέγατε τι δεν κάναμε καλά, θα έλεγα ότι δεν κάναμε καλά που σας τριμώξαμε μόνο σε 8-9 ώρες και δεν κάναμε αυτό το συνέδριο από τώρα τουλάχιστον 1,5 μέρα. Γιατί είχατε τόσα πολλά να πείτε, μας δώσατε όλοι εσείς οι ομιλητές τόσο πολύ τροφή για σκέψη, μας δώσατε τόσο πολλά ερεθίσματα για να συγκρίνουμε, να σκεφτούμε, να διασταυρώσουμε κτλ. Που αδικούμε λίγο όλους μας που δεν δώσαμε λίγο παραπάνω χρόνο να ρωτήσουμε πια πιο πολλά πράγματα, να απαντήσουμε πιο πολλά πράγματα. Αυτό όμως είναι και καλό, γιατί επιβεβαιώνει το πολύ ψηλό ενδιαφέρον. Δηλαδή αυτό το μικρό ανικανοποίητο αίσθημα θα το αξιοποιήσουμε δημιουργικά στο Second HIOS International Shipping Summit, που ελπίζουμε ότι θα το κάνουμε, όπως είπαμε, σε 2 χρόνια από τώρα. Θέλω να ευχαριστήσω τους προέδρους των 3 συνεδρίων. Καταρχήν τους keynote speakers, δεν είναι τώρα εδώ. Ο κύριος Χαράλαμπος Παλιός έφυγε το μεσημέρι. Ο κύριος Σιμεών Παλιός έφυγε πριν από λίγο. Αλλά το ξέρουν ότι τους ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ για τις σημαντικές ομιλίες που δώσανε. Τους 3 προέδρους των 3 συνεδριών, την Ελένη Θανοπούλου, τον Γιώργο τον Πατέρα και τον Δημήτρη τον Φαφαλιό από το πρώτο. Θέλω να ευχαριστήσω πάρα πολύ όλους τους ομιλητές, γιατί όπως είπε και ο Γιώργος Ξηραδάκης, στο αντικείμενο της η κάθε ομιλία ήταν εξαιρετική και καμία δεν ήταν χειρότερη ή καλύτερη από την άλλη. Ήταν πάρα πολύ ψηλού του επίπεδου. Θέλω να ευχαριστήσω για την αιγίδα τους και το Υπουργείο Ναυτιλίας και Νησιωτικής Πολιτικής και το επιμελητήριο, το Ναυτικό Επιμελητήριο Ελλάδας και την Ένωση Τραπεζικών και Χρηματοοικονομικών Επιστημόνων της Ελληνικής Ναυτιλίας. Μπορεί να μην το είπα 100% καλά, ναι, εντάξει, αλλά κάπως έτσι το είπα. Θέλω να ευχαριστήσω, θέλουμε εκ μέρους όλου του τμήματος να ευχαριστήσουμε όλους εσάς που ήσασταν εδώ, που πιστέψατε στο εγχείρημα και που ελπίζω ότι δεν διαψευστήκατε από αυτό το εγχείρημα. Και είναι ακόμα η αρχή. Είναι ακόμα η αρχή. Θέλω να ευχαριστήσω ιδιαίτερα τον κύριο Αντώνη Φαράκλη, γιατί η στήριξή του για το συνέδριο ήταν εξαιρετική. Ήταν ιδιαίτερη. Θέλω να ευχαριστήσω και τους αγαπητούς χορηγούς που εκεί έξω μας δώσανε τόσο ωραία χιώτικα προϊόντα για δώρα και για ενθύμια να πάρουμε μαζί μας, το Μαστίχα Shop, την Ποτοπία Στουπάκι, το Kiss the Port κτλ. Αφήνω για το τέλος τους εντός των τυχών. Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ όλα τα μέλη της κοινότητας του Τμήματος Ναυτιλίας και Επιχειρηματικών Υπηρεσιών. Τους καθηγητές και τις καθηγήτριες, τον Κάπτεν, τον Γεωργούλη, τον Γιάγκο, τον Δάγκινη, τον Νίκο, τον Γανιάρη και όλα τα στελέχη μας που τόσο πολύ προσπάθησαν για να γίνει αυτό το αποτέλεσμα. Το Γιώργη, τον Γεωργούλη ιδιαίτερα, γιατί ήταν και ένας εξαιρετικός σύμβουλος σε κρίσιμες. Στη φίλη σου Θανοπούλου να τα πεις αυτά. Λοιπόν, και θέλω να ξέρετε ότι αυτή η προσπάθεια, αν δεν υπήρχε αυτός ο κύριος με το άσπρο πουκάμισο εκεί, που είναι η Βίκη, η Βίκη Λιούμη που είναι έξω, ο Γιάννης ο Περβανάς είναι αυτός, η Βίκη Λιούμη και η μεγάλη κυρία του ΝΤΕΗ, η κυρία Δήμητρα Ναυτέλη, δεν θα γινόταν τίποτα από αυτά. Με έχει καταλάβει ο πατέρας και το είπε και χθες το βράδυ. Ότι αν δεν υπήρχαν αυτοί, δεν θα γινόταν τίποτα από αυτά. Κρυώνει το φαΐ, πάμε να φάμε.